Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you're staring down the barrel of a brand new school year, you probably know that exact feeling of excitement mixed with, well, utter dread when you're handed a massive stack of new assignments. But today, we're taking a completely different approach. We are going to demystify your very first workbook assignment by treating it not as some boring chore, but as an epic survival quest. I'm going to be your guide here, and together, we are going to conquer this reading mission using clear, structured steps that will honestly make you a master of text analysis. We're going to explain the first lesson in an incredibly easy way, so let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly do you survive your first Year 8 assignment without feeling completely, totally overwhelmed? Well, it's all about perspective. When you look at a giant wall of text, it's really easy for your eyes to just glaze over. But what if we approach this text the exact same way a hero approaches a dangerous new territory? You don't just wander in blind, right? You scan the environment, you identify the threats, and you strategize. And that is exactly what we're going to do today with your first major reading challenge.
First, take a look at the beast itself, the Boodley School Year 8 Work Booklet. At a quick glance, a multi-subject booklet that's cramming English, maths, and science all together can look incredibly intimidating. I mean, it's thick, it's heavy, and it literally represents weeks of hard work. But do not let the cover scare you. We're going to slice right through this thing and isolate just the very first English assignment, breaking it down into manageable, bite-sized pieces so that first lesson actually becomes an absolute breeze.
But what's really interesting is what happens right inside the cover. The workbook makers actually try to shift your mindset instantly. There's this incredible image titled The Power of Books. You've got these butterflies literally bursting out from the pages, representing a mind opening up. So we're pivoting quickly here from the whole idea of boring schoolwork to inspiring literature. This workbook isn't meant to be a trap. It's actually a gateway to some of the most powerful, world-changing stories ever written.
And just look at the Term 1 reading list they've curated for you. We are talking about highly celebrated young adult and 21st century literature. You've got The Circle by Dave Eggers, The Outsiders, The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, and Northern Lights. These are absolutely not your dry, dusty old textbook readings. These are vibrant, high-stakes stories about rebellion, society, and survival. And right at the very top of that list is our primary target for today's mission, Suzanne Collins's absolute modern classic.
And that brings us to your very first challenge. It's a direct extract from The Hunger Games. In this lesson, the curriculum cleverly frames the protagonist Katniss Everdeen's high-stakes survival situation as a mirror for your own challenge in tackling this dense text. Just as Katniss is dropped into an arena and forced to figure out her surroundings to survive, you are being dropped into this excerpt and forced to navigate the author's words to find the right answers. It's basically the perfect parallel to make understanding this assignment so much easier.
Just look at how the author immediately grabs you by the throat right out of the gate. 60 seconds. That is the very first sentence of the extract. It's a fragment. It's incredibly punchy. You can practically hear the sound of a ticking clock, right? The author instantly builds this massive tension by starting with a countdown. Katniss is standing on a metal circle, waiting for a gong, knowing that if she steps off even a second before that minute is up, hidden landmines will blow her legs off. You can literally feel the adrenaline rushing through her veins.
And this brilliantly illustrates the overwhelming, high-stakes scenario Katniss is dropped into. As she looks around during those agonizing 60 seconds, she takes in the ring of tributes. They are all centered around this giant golden horn that's just spilling over with life-saving supplies: food, water, weapons, medicine. It is a visual masterpiece of temptation and danger. The author paints a picture of extreme sensory overload, which honestly is exactly how a reader can feel when they first look at a long, intimidating page of text. So when you're faced with a dense descriptive paragraph like that, strategic scaffolding helps break it down into easy, readable chunks. By separating Katniss's world into two distinct categories, we can easily isolate the facts. First, her physical setting. You have the lake to her right, the sparse piney woods to her left and back, and the flat plain of hard-packed dirt. Second, you have her internal motivation. She literally hears her mentor Haymitch's voice in her head, telling her to completely ignore the supplies and clear out immediately. By separating the where she is from the what she is thinking, analyzing the text becomes so much simpler.
Now we get to transition from passively reading to actively solving. Here's the very first actual workbook question. Where is Katniss in the extract? Now, if you just read the whole page without our little scaffolding technique, you might panic and think, I don't know, an arena? But because we're treating this like a structured quest, we know exactly how to hunt for the specific answer, turning a seemingly tough assignment into a super easy victory.
So here is your step-by-step strategy for locating that textual evidence without breaking a sweat. Step 1. Do not reread every single word. Seriously, don't do it. Just scan the text specifically for nouns that describe places and geography. Let your eyes skim until they hit directional words. Step 2. Locate those specific details. Boom! You find plain of hard-packed dirt. You see, to my right lies a lake, and to my left and back, sparse piney woods. You just successfully extracted the exact evidence the workbook is asking for. Mission completely accomplished for question 1.
Moving on to the next challenge, question 2. It asks, how is she feeling? Why? So, the crucial point here is that reading isn't just about identifying geography, it's about emotional intelligence. The author doesn't just write, Katniss felt scared. I mean, that would be totally boring. Instead, the author gives us environmental and physical clues, and we basically have to play detective to decode the emotional state of the character.
Gathering our evidence reveals several massive clues for high tension in this text. We've got the 60-second countdown gong typing her stomach in knots, we have the literal threat of hidden landmines waiting to detonate if she even flinches, and of course we have the knowledge that she's surrounded by 23 other tributes who will happily fight her to the death for a plastic sheet or a tent pack. So when you write your answer, you can confidently state she is feeling terrified, adrenaline-fueled, and hyper-focused. And then you can point directly to these 3 terrifying facts as your why.
Which leads right into the third question. What decision is she trying to make? Because look, every great piece of fiction revolves around a massive character dilemma. The tension isn't just about the landmines. It's about the agonizing choice Katniss has to make the exact second that gong sounds.
We can clearly map out this high-stakes dilemma using the details directly from the excerpt. On one side, we have the temptation. She clearly sees a life-saving tent pack sitting right in the mouth of the Golden Horn. It could protect her from any weather, but she'd have to fight 23 kids to get it. On the other side, we have the instruction. Her mentor Haymitch told her to put as much distance between herself and the others as possible and find water immediately. So she's deciding between a high-risk, high-reward dash for gear or a safer, strategic retreat. Think about it. What would you choose in that exact split second?
Now, before we wrap up this lesson, the workbook asks us to look at some key vocabulary because a true survivor definitely needs the right tools. We're going to break down a tricky word from the text, equidistant. It simply means at equal distances. The author notes that all the tributes are equidistant from the horn. Why does this actually matter? Well, it means the game makers have engineered this to be perfectly fair and perfectly deadly. Everyone has the exact same chance to reach the weapons at the exact same time. It's a brilliant word choice to just dial up the suspense.
And then we have the cornucopia. Traditionally, in mythology, a cornucopia is a symbol of abundance and harvest, literally a horn of plenty. But Suzanne Collins completely twists this classical symbol. Here, it is a giant golden horn shaped like a cone, spilling over with life-saving supplies, but it's positioned as the epicenter of an absolute bloodbath. Understanding this definition fully decodes the visual setting of the arena and really highlights the twisted nature of the games they are forced to play.
Look at what we've accomplished here. Total victory. You have successfully decoded the most intimidating part of the first lesson. By breaking the text down visually, identifying physical versus internal settings, and using a step-by-step scanning strategy, you've taken all the fear out of the assignment. Explaining the first lesson in an easy way was our goal, and we nailed it. Once the text is demystified like this, you'll find it incredibly straightforward to cruise through the remaining workbook questions, like analyzing the character of Peeta or judging Katniss's ultimate decision.
Which leaves us with one final thought. You've conquered the arena of the Hunger Games extract today. But this workbook is packed with other fantastic stories, from Chinua Achebe to Philip Pullman. So my question to you is, how are you going to use these reading survival skills, the scanning for clues, analyzing the emotional tension, and breaking down character dilemmas for your next literary mission? Keep this structured strategy right in your back pocket, and I promise there isn't a single text in this booklet you can't master. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy reading.